fields of the Lord, our work is rest. He is moving in our hands and feet to bless. In the fields of the Lord, in the fields of the Lord, in the fields of the Lord, our work is rest. In the vineyards of the Lord, our work is light. He is tending every leaf and every vine. In the vineyards of the Lord, in the vineyards of the Lord, in the vineyards of the Lord, our work is light. At the harvest of the Lord, the fields are white. He will wipe away the tears from every eye. At the harvest of the Lord, at the harvest of the Lord, at the harvest of the Lord, the fields are white.
Hi, and good morning, and welcome to another edition of Catholics at Home podcast. I am Mag, and this is our 65th episode of the podcast. Can you believe it's been 65 weeks already? And we want to thank you for your continuous support and making time for us right here on Catholics at Home. Now, of course, it brings me great pleasure to share with you that we are now streaming on the channels of the Archdiocese of Malacca Johor, Penang, and Miri, and we welcome you, especially if this is your first time joining us here on Catholics at Home. Now, of course, today we've got a very interesting topic lined up for you. We are going to be shining a light on how the pandemic has affected the man on the street, especially the poor, the homeless, and the marginalized. But before we get into that conversation, I think you know what the cue is, right? We cannot have a show without the man behind the show. So let's bring on our main man himself, Father Clarence Devadas, on today's Catholics at Home. Good morning, Father. How are you today? Father, you're muted.
After 65 weeks, I still forget to unmute myself.
That's funny. How are you, Father?
I am good, Mac. Given the situation, the circumstances, trying to do what I can together. What we do here, what we do, I do in the parish. Like you said, trying to reach to the man and the woman. Don't forget, and the children on the streets at this very difficult time. Yeah. And how are you keeping? Good to have you back.
Okay. Surviving. That's what we do, isn't it? As human beings, we adapt and we survive. So as much as we can, at least.
Yeah, it's I think that's one of the qualities of the human person that is undervalued. The ability to adapt, the ability to overcome challenges, difficulties. And like you said, what we see today is happening in our country. People reaching out. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's how everyone is doing something to help one another. So I think, the resilience that humanity has is something amazing. Yeah, and we have two great people this
Definitely.
morning to talk to us about it.
Definitely. I think when we talk about reaching out to the streets, these two have been doing so much, and it just blows my mind the extent that they go to, and the fact that there's no such thing as being tired. They're never tired of doing what they do, and I think we're grateful to have people so committed to helping the poor, so committed to helping, like one of our guests helps the stateless, the marginalized, and those who are suffering in silence as well. Let's just face it that, Father, you mentioned just now, we've been locked down, or rather we've been at home for 400 days. I mean, wow. There are so many people who are actually suffering in silence as well. So, let's get right to this conversation this morning. And, we've spoken a little bit about our guests, so let's bring them on. Let's have Dr. Hartini Zainuddin. She is the founder of Yayasan Chowkit, and Arnaud Marolleau, the VP or the Vice President of the Giving Bank. Welcome, guys. How are y'all today?
Good. Good morning. Hi, Meg. Hi, Father Clarence.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Hi.
We're
Hi.
good, and we hope you are too. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know now for this 1.5 hours, perhaps, the streets are missing you. And you get a little bit of rest.
Thank you. Thank
Now,
you.
let's face it. Let's face it, the COVID-19 pandemic has taken a toll on everybody's life, but I'm sure that it's been especially cruel to the poor and the vulnerable. And I think you've seen it firsthand as well. So today we want to tap into your brains, tap into your stories, and find out more about how things have changed since the emergence of the pandemic. So I hope you can share that with us. But before anything, Father, what were you going to say? Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, despite having interesting and trending conversations, we also bring people who are in a similar field of work together. I'm told that Arnaud and Tini have heard of each other, but first time meeting each other. So
Yes.
we are also connecting friends.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
That's the beauty about it. Yeah. Now, of
Yeah.
course, if you're watching us, you are more than welcome to drop in your comments at the comment section below. Don't forget to like and share the podcast as well, so that we can spread the word as far as we can and hopefully help more people out there. So let's start with getting to know your stories. Now, individually, you have two different backgrounds. How you started, of course, very different as well. So tell us a bit about yourself and what you do in your respective organizations.
Tini, go.
Sorry. Okay, so I am actually trained as a teacher. I've wanted to be a teacher since I was 6 years old. Lived in America for 20 years. Started as a volunteer working with children in different sort of situations. So I've worked in soup kitchens in New York, in shelters, in St. Vincent's Hospital. I was one of those candy stripers that, walked around the AIDS wards, giving out magazines, listening, doing a buddy system. And then when I came home, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew I wasn't going to teach, but I wanted to work with children, and it sort of evolved, right? Volunteering in one of the daycare centers in Chowkit, and then seeing what the gaps were, and then sort of expanding with it. I think I'm blessed because I have friends, lots of friends, and I have this network of people who really want to help. So that's really how it started. It's very organic. I didn't start out learning about child protection or doing child rights. It sort of organically grew and fell into my lap, and I sort of advocated for it because I saw there were things missing for children. That's how it started.
That's a beautiful story. Arnaud, what about you?
Entrepreneur, been in Malaysia for 25 years. And I think at one point in my life, something was missing. You can be very successful at work and still there is a gap. There's something that needs to be fulfilled. And a really good friend of mine, which is the founder of the Giving Bank, Dr. Jensen Ang, asked me, why don't you join as a volunteer? And I did. My first mission was with an orphanage. We were helping the orphanage to move from one block to another. And I got hooked. And like before it was 30% the giving bank and maybe 70%, work. And for the last 400 days, like Father said, I think it's 80% the giving bank and maybe 20% work.
Wow, it's flipped.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Now, the both of you mentioned that, you realize that there is something missing, right? So when did that come to you? I mean, how did you notice that this is what needed to be part of your life to make you whole?
For me, it was setting up or working with the ministry on setting up this daycare center in Chowket. And it sort of just fell into place. And there were personal things going on in my life at the same time. I think my father got sick and he died. And so this was the same time that I was doing volunteer. And just like Arnaud, there was something missing. And I knew I always wanted to work with children. I just didn't know where. And I never, ever thought it would be Malaysia, ever. Because for me, it was like, Malaysia's not poor. We don't have poor children. We don't discriminate against children. We don't, discriminate against people. And then you do. And then you find out they do, and that no one is doing anything about it. That's one part. But the other part was realizing that there were little people, that's children, little grown-ups, that's what I call them, who have bigger problems, but have the right attitude. I know you talked a little bit before the show about resilience. These children have resilience like you cannot believe. If you were to put me on the streets under the same conditions that some of these children and families are working, I wouldn't survive. I really wouldn't. And what these kids have, that courage, that determination, that creativity, and that will to want to not just survive, to thrive, is incredible. And so for me, they were the role models. And I thought, my life isn't so bad, and I can do something to make things better for them. So I try.
Yeah. Just listening to both of you, I was just wondering, I mean, just alluding to what Meg had asked, is this something that, that was nurtured when, in your family? I mean, like your parents, that you got this love of service, of generosity. Is that something that you grew in the context of your own family?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, for me, I'm talking too much, Arnaud. You better jump in. For me, yes, definitely. I think for my father was this sense of generosity, and because he came from such a poor family but a large family, and I think for my mother, a love of children, and sort of the combination of the two, and then the experiences of working and having the opportunity to volunteer, and having these opportunities to volunteer in a big way in New York, and seeing what I see, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Arnaud, your turn to jump in.
Yeah, my turn. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was being part of the gap was being part of a greater good. Like our life is, I mean, we are very individualistic. It's our life, our relationship, our work, and at one point, I think you want to be part of something which is bigger than you. And I think joining an NGO, joining people who are helping others, it's way bigger than you, because you see things, I mean, which blows your mind out, and I think it somehow it grounds you. It makes you feel so grateful of where you are. You really feel like every time I go out, I come back, I'm mesmerized how blessed I am, and I think this is something which is really, really amazing. And the way it started for me is in France at the time when I was young, a few years back. We had to do our military service. And instead of doing the normal 1 year in France, I decided to do humanitarian action in Africa, in Djibouti. And that's the way it started. I was part of the Air Force hospitals, and we were taking the helicopters and stopping with the nomads here. And that's where I discovered, and there was more than concrete, glitters and lamplights, you know what I mean? And you start seeing, more than where you grew up with, in your nurture family hub. So it was amazing. And I think 40 years later, he catch me back.
Wow. Wonderful. Now, of course, before we go deeper into the conversation, for all our viewers who are watching right now, they would like to know, what do you do in the Giving Bank? What do you do at the Yayasan Child Kit? Maybe you can share that with us so that we can dive deeper into what you do as well.
All right, so I'm the vice president of the Giving Bank. Started as a humble volunteer, but I think because I was disturbing Jensen all the time, asking, what do we do? What do we do? Let's go on the ground. Let's do something. Let's go. He said, okay, this guy's enthusiasm needs to be used. So I end up being the vice president, which is, it's amazing because when you're a volunteer, you just show up, right? You just do work. And I think, Tini will really relate to this. But once you're part of the managing an NGO or organizing things, it's, you are like, it's 24/7. You get called of people who need help. You're calling people to raise funds. I mean, I think I have lost a few friends because and it's so much, going on, in a backstage, and this is what people don't see. And this is, I think, the beauty of it is, yes, raising fund, going and buy things at Tesco, putting things into bags and organizing the full logistic behind. And I think for me, this pandemic has also been a blessing because I think there is no turning back for me now. It's really what I want to do. If possible, 100% of the time, if not 80%.
Wow, lovely. Tini, what about yourself?
Oh, God. I think, first of all, I'm just going to pick up where Arnaud left off. This pandemic has brought out and highlighted, I think, huge differences between the have and have-nots. The work that we do in Yayasan Child Kit centers around children and child rights and child protection. So, of course, when this whole pandemic thing happened, it was really about ensuring that the 121 children and their families had food because everybody got locked down. Everybody didn't know what was going on. And we have children, and we have shelters with babies and little ones under 12 years old and stuff, So for us, it was really about advocating that they had basic needs met. And the first basic need and priority was food. Then, of course, it was about shelter and protection. And, 30% of our children in Child Kit are migrants and refugee children who just want to go to school and, make sure they have 3 meals a day. And so to ensure that they had access to education and, the teachers, staff, getting social workers to go out there, to be able to get permission to go do house visits, which is still not done. Third round, we still can't do that. But I will tell you very frankly, I don't run Yayasan Child Kit anymore. I do the advocacy, I do the fundraising, I do the cases if it's really hard, and I'm the loudmouth and troublemaker if it needs to get, a loudspeaker, and then they will do because I am the biggest troublemaker. I say this lovingly to myself. And then I do things outside because people ask, right? So I work with the stateless in Sabah because I've known some of them for a while, and they're in trouble, right? And and that person in Jinjang or Kajang or Kelantan or Terengganu, I know one person, and they sort of spread the word, and the word got out. And how do you say no? How do you say no when people hold up pictures of their children and show pictures of their kitchen and they leave you voicemails and they're crying on the phone because they have no food, this morning, I had some, and these are strangers, it's referral. So someone refers to someone to someone. And, and this guy who lost his job doing delivery services at one of the big supermarkets, he lost his job. And he said, can you just give me a bit of money because I was retrenched a year ago, and if when you give the money, I will then be able to go to the ATM machine, which is 41 kilometers away by bicycle. 41. And my heart just went, block. You can't block them, it's just, So it gets overwhelming. I had another friend call me this morning. She's like, how on earth are you doing this, right? 100 families a day, asking for help. That's almost 600 people a day, right? I'm one person. So, we had a bunch of friends who see me whining and complaining and, and like whatever, saying I want chocolate and coffee, which is my stress mechanism in cupcakes. So what? We got to help Tini. So they all like came together, we pool, and we have different initiatives just to help, right? And someone says, okay, we're getting you a phone, so you have someone else taking over those 100 for food, please. So I think it's really, you want to say that you're just doing this work in childcare and you're just doing children. You can't, not in this time. It's really about humanity, right? And helping your neighbors. So it's just chinla, do kela. There's no boundaries. Roll up your sleeves and do it.
Absolutely. Okay. So
now, coming to what you were, sorry,
Yeah.
No,
Fadi, go ahead.
I was just going to allude to what Tini said much earlier. When you were in the US, you thought that there were no poor people in Malaysia. I think this pandemic has revealed that there are lots of people out there who are really in need, even before the pandemic. But I think the pandemic has kind of like brought to light this great issue of the differences between those who have and those who have not, or those who survive with very little things. Part of our conversation this morning was to be able to have a kind of a reality check, just to feel the pulse on the ground. Many of us are locked in a lockdown. We hear these things. That people need this, people are this. You are people who are on the ground. If you could, maybe Arnaud can start to say, what's the pulse on the ground at this time? Among people. What don't we see? We hear, but you see it. So relate what you see to us. Let us see what's happening in Malaysia through you.
I think it's really sad. I mean, talking to Tini, I'm tearing up because we see Kuala Lumpur as it's concrete, it's skyscrapers, and it's beautiful, right? And everybody stays in their beautiful home, but you have no idea what's going on next door. And I think this pandemic it's not only the poor, is the people who have become urban poor overnight. People who do not. When people are poor, they have already learned to manage their life. With very little budget, because this is in the position that they are. But there is people who have never experienced this. And suddenly it's a massive change, and we go around, and I have experiences. I mean, the other day we were in Brickfield distributing essential goods, and at one point, we met the family in the street, and suddenly 5 people stops around the car, 10 people stops around the car, 30 people stops around the car, and suddenly I'm like, we're gonna open the car and take everything. People are really in need, and there is frustration because they seems to be asking a lot of places, and the government cannot cater or is overwhelmed by the situation and is not able to help, and you can see this frustration of people wanted to survive, and we have never seen this before. I really think that this MCO or EMCO is really pushing people to the other side, of the edges, and we stopped, and we were another occasion. There was this lady who came down, and we give her the essential, and she saw 3 bags of Maggi mee, and she cried because she said, I will be able to give something else to my children than rice. Maggi mee, I mean, I thought, I don't know. I mean, for me, it blows my mind because it's overwhelming because you never see the end of it. And I was talking to Jensen the other day, and I says, are we gonna be able to really help all of these people? And his answer is, we are only here to give a better beginning, a light of hope to people. Then they are cared for. Then we have them in their mind, and they say that will push them to the next step. And I think that was really, really powerful.
Hartini, what about yourself?
I try really hard not to cry, so I eat more chocolate. It is horrible.
Yeah.
It is horrible on the ground now. I have the privilege because I am a consultant for the Malaysian Red Crescent. So I actually do strategy, right? So I do like the lofty policy strategy. What are we going to do to get more money? The partnerships. I do that work, right? And then you see what's happening with YCK, and we have staff, and we're galvanizing and trying to move and address children, and then I do Sabah and Kelantan and the single mothers and all. That's my personal capacity. And you see, and the stories I think are heartbreaking. I will give you one. So a mother asked me for help. We usually try to give 200 ringgit to last a family for 1 month. Yeah, it's 50 ringgit a week. And so I gave her 200 ringgit. She was so happy because she had all these children hungry. And then she sent me a picture of her daughter eating a bowl of porridge, bubo. And I said, wait a second, I just gave you 200 ringgit. Why is she only eating porridge with no meat, with no vegetables? And she said, oh, but she can survive on bubo because I have to pay the rent. I have never, yes, had poor people not pay rent, not so many, and not so many single mothers, not so many being kicked out their homes, not so many being driven out their homes, not so many losing their jobs. I am having by the hundreds in Kelantan, in Terengganu, in Sabah. Today, this morning, this guy was telling me, yes, he lost his job working as a delivery person in a food place. Another lady was 28 years old. She got laid off working in a factory. And she says, I don't worry about me, but I can see my parents, my older parents, despairing because I have 86 ringgit in my bank and I don't know where I'm going to buy the next meal. It's not enough to last me food for 2 weeks. And you hear these stories over and over again, right? And you just think to yourself, like, what can you do? And, and it's fine to say we do what we can, but for me, that's really lofty and that's really condescending in many ways because we can't do just what we can. We need to do more, and we need to do more, and we need to sort of share our resources and our love and our compassion with a lot more people than we want to, because we have to. Because if we don't, children are dying. Children are hungry. The elderly are sick and they're dying. And, and we don't see this because we have a house. We don't need to worry about rent. We don't need to worry about food. But there are so many out there who don't. So I eat a lot of chocolates and cupcakes to stress eat, as I said. And for me, a sense of humor during these horrible times is very important. Or you can go absolutely crazy. So, being your own caretaker and being your own self-care person is also very important. And so for my excuse, I'll lose the weight next year, but I need to do what I can to cope because people count, and not because I'm so amazing or so important. I'm just like you and the next person and the next person and the next person, but because it gets stressful and I'm only human and I am moved and I am compelled to help the next person. So whoever I can help, I help. But I have to do more than just help, right? I need to make sure they're okay. Because, these people who ask for food are going to come back in 2 weeks. We have no strategy. We have no system.
Like I was in Djibouti during the wartime. It was a civilian war. And where we are now, it makes me think of a wartime. It's exactly the same of what I have seen, but because we don't see the enemy, and we are constantly on Netflix watching a lot of series, and we think there is absolutely no problem happening. I think the society at large is in total denial of what's happening in the hospitals. Totally in denial of what's happening in the ground, and I like for me who have went through the Djiboutian civil war, when I go on the ground, it's exactly the same. Yeah.
Wow.
I totally agree. I don't even know I watch movies, but I swear it feels like I'm battling enemies I don't even see, and trying to go in and help the citizens and the children, like, stop the fighting, stop the politics, stop the whatever. I'm like, oh my God, this is a war and we're losing. And you need to just don on your battle fatigues and get out there, roll up your sleeves and get out there. I don't mean helping the next state or the next district. Just check on your people down the street. And like I said, we're ordinary people. I didn't study anything. Nobody told me how to do this work. Nobody taught any of us how to do this work. You just have to do it, and just organize, ask questions. But it is a battle, and it is a war, and we're losing this war. We are.
So in that case, how do we help in this war? Where do we come in? How can anybody, anyone at all who's watching actually make a difference? Because if it's a war, it's a battle that's never going to end, not until we find a solution, are we?
But and I don't know about wartime tactics. Go ahead, Arnaud. But I was just thinking street to street, right? I mean, that's what I read and see in magazine movies, right? So it's street to street, like start with your own street, check on the mental health, make sure everybody's okay. If your street is fine, then go to the next street, go to the next street. But I think if every person just does what is around them, then that would help, right? And if, I'm talking to my friends, I mean, the whole day today, that's all I'm doing is meetings, like talking to people, like strategizing, like, how do we do this, right? Neighborhood by neighborhood, petrol station by petrol station, area by area. If the government can't do it for whatever reason, okay, fine, government can't do it, but we can't depend on them. We need to do this ourselves. Food is a basic need. You can't survive without no food. Mental health and all are privileges now, when they should be something that's a constant, right? We need to think about our mental health as well, but all this is supposed to go hand in hand. The fact that, education is now not accessible to all, that it's a privilege for those who have internet. How is that right? How is that right? So yes, it can get overwhelming, but if you do one family at a time, one person at a time, one street at a time, one area at a time, and everybody pitches in, that covers the whole country.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot different people can help at different level. First I'm looking at all of these companies who do canned food. If you do canned food, every time the can is knocked or the can is not pretty, it cannot be in the supermarket anymore because nobody takes it.
Yep.
So it goes back to the factory. You're not going to do anything with this can. Give it away. Give it away. I mean, at the end of the day, take it as your CSR, take it as your branding. Why are you holding on those cans and you're not going to sell? I mean, that blows me away. And then when you call them, they are reluctant to give you those cans. But I'm like, you're not going to use it. These people which is dying of food out there, give those bloody cans, and not everybody wants to give it. There's people who are in a more comfortable situation financially, reach our website. We take every single cent that you can give. You know what I mean? The Satu Ringgit also we take. Imapulo cent also we take. We take it
all. Satu Ringgit is very important now.
It makes a difference.
Yeah, it makes a difference because we are 8 million people in Malaysia. If half of it give 50 cents, it's massive. It's about 4 million, right? So 2 million. So let's take it. And then after that, I remember my grandfather who went through the war, always put on the table the plate for the poor. I was raised, always have an empty seat with a plate, a knife, everything. And that was the plate for the poor. So our table, there was always a seat ready for whoever will come or whoever will pass by. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I think today, the people who cook, right? If you can just pack one of your meals, if you cook for 4, you cook for 5. Pack it, leave it in the front of someone which is in need. You know what I mean? You don't need, maybe you're shy, you don't want to knock at the door and give it to them. Whatever. Just do one meal a day than you give away. If we all do that, like Malaysia, 8 million people, we have a way of really helping, but a lot of people says, oh, this leftover, nobody wants it, so let's just throw it away. I only have 5 ringgit to give. Who is interested with 5 ringgit? Let me not just give. But actually is that extra meal that you give, then help us take care of other people. Is that 5 ringgit that you give, then help us to accumulate those 5 ringgit and be able to help people on the ground. So there is no little help. And I think that plate for the poor, I think is really, really powerful.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think
I love that.
most of us pay a lot more for delivery charges, so that money can actually go towards preparing a warm meal for a family out there. You never know how much help you can actually do. So yeah. So when you said that, even 1 ringgit makes a difference, I'm thinking, wow, half the time we're paying 5 ringgit, 10 ringgit for delivery. So imagine what that could possibly do.
Yeah, for me, it's very simple. 10 ringgit feeds a child 3 meals a day, because we can get, 1 meal a day for 3 ringgit, right? It's about less than that. 9 ringgit gets 3 meals a day for a child. But I need to correct you, Arnaud, because we have 32.8 million.
Yeah, we have 32 million. We were not 8 million in so long.
Let's take it.
I'm so sorry, but we gotta help a lot more.
I was just listening. I was just listening to him, and I just thought in the pandemic we lost about 24 million people. Are we left with 8 million people in Malaysia?
It's okay. We will forgive the Frenchman in Malaysia.
Yeah,
No. I didn't want to bust your bubble, but I need to tell you about the reality. No, but honestly, though, 10 ringgit. 10 ringgit's 3 meals.
Yeah, no, I think
I think
both of you have kind of brought out the point that every one of us can do something, and we don't have to do big things. We can do small things in little ways to help. And I hear so many different stories of people helping out. When they go to pump petrol and they see this little kind of a shelf, they just put some things there, or they just buy some things and put it on the shelf. And I think that those are little things that people can start doing, that each one of us can do, because even though we are locked in homes, I know of our family that just set up a little kind of a kiosk in a grocery store to put things there, and people just take as what they want. I think this is not the time to judge people, who takes or who doesn't take, or do people take more than what is necessary. It's bound to happen, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure you working on the ground, you will also see that people, being humans, they do not know where the next meal is going to come from. So they may take more than what is needed. But I think this is the time, to put aside our judgment of people and just be able to contribute in whatever small way we can. It's so moving to just hear your stories, and I'm sure there are loads of other stories that you can tell. But just trying to.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I interrupted you.
Just trying to kind of come to grasp. We know maybe that the system has failed us, or the system is not working as how it should work. I'm just thinking in the sense that, to be able to reach out to your neighbor. And I think Arnaud has got a good suggestion: cook 1 extra meal, or buy 1 extra bag of rice if you're buying, and give it to someone. And I think what moves you? I just coming back to what you were saying earlier. At this time, to move others. How do you inspire others during this time? How can you be a flicker of hope? Because it's a time when, every day when the daily reports come up, it's just like, for me, it's like more and more depressing. Every day you hear the number of cases are going up. What can we do to be a flicker of hope to someone else, to inspire someone else?
I want to say I inspire people, but I don't. I scare people.
This is not true, Tini. It's not true. It's not true.
But how do you give hope? How do you give hope to the poor at this time?
Well, first of all, I ask permission if I can share their stories, because people want to know that they are a source of inspiration and sort of the source of what's happening on the ground, to say that I have spoken to you and that your voice is heard. I think many times the poor and marginalized and vulnerable never have their voices heard. So what I do is act as a conduit, as a loudspeaker to sort of amplify their voices. But I do ask permission first. I do a lot on social media in terms of sharing stories and photos with permission and explain why this is happening. It's not about asking for money for me, because I'm an activist, yeah. So for me, it's very important that I highlight what's going on and I tell people, as many people as possible, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, and to humanize those numbers. We talk about 8,000 cases, and we talk about 10 million, 32.8 million, where only 10% perhaps or 8% are rich, very rich. We need to put faces to the voices of the poor. They're not numbers. They're entire families and individuals in trouble through no fault of their own. Yes, we have had poor prior to the pandemic, but the pandemic has made things a lot worse. And while that's happening all around the world, I think we need to step up. We need to highlight, showcase, and say, look, this is the issue. This is what's happening. Can more people help? And Malaysians as a whole, we're very generous and we're very kind. And we say this all the time, like, it's a mantra. Malaysians are generous and very kind, but we are. But I think we have to do a little bit more than just be generous and kind, and really open our eyes and see and accept and acknowledge the fact that so many are in trouble, and that it is not a distant issue. This is your next door neighbor, or the neighbor on the other side of the street, or the neighbor down the road. So we need to acknowledge that and understand that it is a collective responsibility of us as Malaysians, or us living in Malaysia, because we have non-Malaysians living here too, to step up and help. I have a poor child who is 17, who gives me 10 ringgit. That's all. She's poor herself, yeah? 10 ringgit every month. And she said, I know this is all. I said, that's how I always say, 10 ringgit pays for one day, 3 meals for one child. So never say, this is all I have, or this is all I can do, because you're doing a hell of a lot more than a lot of other people. So that's my message. That's how I do it.
I really love what Tini says. I think the way that for me, I keep the good vibes. When I'm on the ground, I keep being, happy, positive, cheer up, because the people then we are already seeing, they're already done. Being stuck at home, it's already painful, but being stuck at home with no money to eat, it's even worse, right? And yeah, for me, it's been this bubble of energy, you know what I mean? And come on, it says, guys, okay, let's go do it. It's gonna get better. Don't worry, fight through it, and give them a little bit of a light of hope, for those people that we go and see, because I don't think that we are pulling into sadness helps, So I think for me is go see them, give them, of course, the essential food, being full of energy and compassion, and listening to them. I think having a lot of empathy, because I think these people feel that they are not heard, because they are literally abandoned. Yeah, they are abandoned by the society at large, because everybody, there's so many people who can help. They just refuse to help. And I think that is really, I think that's really sad. So listening to them, make them feel that they exist, at least for me at that time.
Well said. Very well said.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just curious though, when you go down to the streets, go down to the ground, and you are faced with so many people, you're overwhelmed by the response. Now, Arnaud, you say you are that bubble of hope, right? The bubble of energy. And Tini, you are loud and you speak for the people. But when you go home and you digest this and you sit by yourself, what goes through your mind after what your whole mission has taken you to?
I want to
How do you
sleep.
feel?
I want to sleep.
Time to sleep.
I'm
You're
exhausted.
exhausted.
Chocolates and cupcakes.
Yeah,
Chocolates, cupcakes, and then I go to sleep. I'm serious. I'm
and then a
exhausted.
little cry once in a while.
Okay.
I think I hold so much sadness and anger in my stomach. Yes, no, and I think it's the cupcakes. But I think when I have kids, and by the time I home, I see them, and they've been stuck at home for so long. Yeah. By the time I finish dinner, I don't want to talk to anyone because I've been on the phone 150 times that day, and it's terrible because I have a personal life and I have my own life. So having to, even if my daughter speaks and I'm falling asleep, at least she thinks I'm listening. Now she knows I wasn't. But honestly, I just want to sleep because I know 6 o'clock in the morning,
It's
that
another
phone
day.
is another day. So I try to sleep 6 hours if I'm lucky. But usually it's 3 to 4, and I think it's important. I'm trying a lot harder on that. But I can't switch off the phone, and blocking please because it's overwhelming isn't working either. You can't do that. You can't turn people off.
Yeah.
I don't know the answers. I'll just tell you how I cope.
Yeah, I think that the hardest thing is to tell someone I don't have for you right now. That really touched me. A few days ago we went and helped some Filipinos, and the reason why we went and helped it is we have all of these labor workers who are here to make our life fantastic. Normal time, right? They are in a restaurant, they are helping us to have a better life. And then suddenly there's the pandemic that comes and nobody thinks about them. And they are the one which is it's hand to mouth, right? There's no work, there's nothing in the hand, there's nothing in the mouth. Is direct. And suddenly, of course, I will text them and I say, hey guys, I'm coming, be ready, be at home, because I will be coming to bring you some food. And when I give them the food, within 15, 20 minutes, they start giving me the address of other people who needs it.
Yeah.
And then it's a snowball, right? So suddenly you're like, okay, I have enough. I will be able to help that person. And then suddenly you're like, oh my goodness, there is 10, hundreds new person numbers. And I'm like, I can't, you can't help. And people call you and says, can you give me? And sometimes we just don't have enough food of essential to help. And yeah, that is the hard part is not to be able to help at that point of time. And he says, okay, I keep you in my list. As soon as I have, I will come and help you. I will come and do something, And I want to say, I was putting help on my Instagram about me helping the Filipinos. And there's a person that says, why are you helping the Filipinos? Kind of angry. And I'm like, guys, I say, we are in Malaysia. This is you can today, don't think of race, don't think of religion, don't think of nationality, because we are all stuck here. We are here. If we do not help people will needs to survive, right? If we do not help people, it will be the door open for minor criminality. To people to go in the shop and start stealing things, because people need human will adapt and they will survive one way or another. Mm-hmm. So we need to stop thinking, oh, I'm only helping Malaysian, I'm only helping Chinese, I'm only helping Malay, I'm only helping Christian, I'm only helping Muslim. Guys, we are past and beyond this. We just now need to help as a human. We just need to help each other, because if you know, it's like a domino effect, right? You know what I mean? If you don't help people at the end of the domino chain, it's not pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I always say, and this is my activist advocacy tagline. I'm like, the national security threat isn't from outside. It isn't Rohingya refugees coming on boats.
Yeah.
The threat is not helping, is already inside. That we discriminate, or we have xenophobia, or that we make this divisive decision to, say only Malaysians, or only whether we're all in Malaysia. Everyone, and so I'm very careful in the words. I never say Malaysian. I always say help those in Malaysia, because we're all, exactly as Arnaud says, we are stuck here. The threat is if we don't help everyone. The threat is if you exclude anyone. The threat is if you say this person doesn't eat, because you know what? Exactly. People will survive. They need to survive, and they will find ways, and we can focus on the short-term goal of helping, giving food and stuff, but we do need to think of better ways later. Yes, but we have to continue what we do now, which is, for me, very reactionary and very stuff, but it's necessary because people are hungry, and people are losing their homes, and children are hungry and not having milk and drinking coconut milk because there's no milk in the house.
Yeah.
Cannot. And so for us, if you really want to help Malaysia, help everyone in Malaysia, not just Malaysians.
Yeah.
And there shouldn't be discrimination.
And I wish that the government will do, really, because we need to consider this as a wartime. Like, we are very often at the hospitals, and seeing the situation of the hospital is overwhelming, and the frontliners are really, really tired. And we need to do food ration. The government needs to pack food ration and be able to distribute it every day. If really, if we don't do this, we are now, at 9,000 plus cases, right? That means the lockdown is going to continue. The lockdown continuing means more and more people will lose jobs. More and more people will have to close businesses. This is the reality of things. Let's not be in denial and see what's happening on Netflix. The reality of things is really shocking, and the basic necessity of eating. That is something that I hope the government take into consideration and start distributing food, because at the moment, I think in the new budget they have given money to the YBs, to give, but how is that utilized? What is given really? What goes to the ground? How much of it is really going to the ground? I'm sure there is some fantastic YBs around Malaysia, and maybe there is the others.
Nicely put.
You say so you say so little that you say so much.
Yeah, man.
No, but because I have been in this country 25 years. This country has been so good to me. I had opportunities that I would have never had if I would have been in France. You know what I mean? I am privileged to have been a guest in this country, and I take it as my duty today to give back, today to help people, because you cannot just take all the time, right? It's not right. At one point you need to realize how blessed you are, and it's your time to bless others, and I will do what I can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think yeah. Go ahead. No,
I think we have some interesting questions from some engagement with our audience.
Yes,
this
we
morning.
do.
Maybe Meg, you want to take some.
Yeah, sure. Okay, we've got Lata who says, "Hats off to the both of you. What you have seen and shared with us are emotionally painful." But she does have a question. She wants to know, how do you keep yourself going despite the many challenges that you go through every day?
Chocolates, coffee, and cupcakes.
You need a pick me up, and that's like the perfect combination.
Sugar and caffeine, because it's really that, and honestly that, and that my kids are safe at home and my family is safe. It gives me reassurance that I can go out and it's okay to go out and help others. But yeah, coffee, cupcakes, and chocolates. Seriously.
Okay.
Because there's and you can't jump in there. Just jump
But
in there.
it must be difficult. Sorry, it must be difficult, Tini. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Meg alluded to that earlier. How do you distance yourself? Downtime? Do you have downtime? I mean, just
Personal
That was
time.
what I was gonna
me
say.
time
There's
for
no
a while with your
boundaries.
family.
Yeah, I'm not very good at boundaries, which is something I'm learning. It's sort of blurred, it's like one big, kaleidoscope of colors and just doing and time. Yeah, I mean, sensibly there should be boundaries and turning off. And, someone suggested to me this morning, like, give them like the doctor is in, right, on call and say, you can only, ask me for help for food between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. After 6 p.m., I am not going to answer your calls. So she just told me that today. So I will try that. I don't know.
I don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah, I also can't do it. What keeps me going is as a Christian, I really think that the good will prevail. I know that we will get through this. I know, and I do not know the verse, but I think in the Bible it says at one point that to feel the grace of God, you need to feel the pain of people.
Wow.
And this is, for me, is really that what keeps me going. Is you go out there, you see what's out there, and yeah, you know, then you are in God's good book.
Are you just getting brownie points, Arnaud?
I want brownie points too.
No, but like we always want more of our life, right? Everybody has ambitions and hope, and sometimes we always complain, of what we have, and Father, which leading a ministry, sees that from the beginning of his job, I think, but when you are faced with reality, you're like, oh God, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed to be in a position that I am in today, to be able to serve and help others. And that keeps me going.
Okay, so we have another one here.
Nicely, not that I'm competitive. That's beautifully said.
Alexander is asking, do you think there should be a centralized platform for all NGOs or charity organizations to strategically coordinate and help each other out and to be informed on the lack or surplus of supply so that, they can actually meet the needs of a bigger pool of people or, channel the needs to where it is really needed?
That's a double-edged sword, yeah. I do think we need to align our efforts so that there's no duplication and replication. But I think it's also difficult to have just one platform so that so everybody sort of knows or demarcates their areas of where they're going to help, etc. I do think we do need to check in. We have like WhatsApp chat groups, right, on food distribution. I think I'm in like 3 different food distribution strategies. Right. So yes, there's a lot of informal aligning of who does what and mapping out who does what. But the truth of the matter is there are still pockets of people who are not going to be covered because it's huge. We talk about Sabah, it's huge. Nobody can do everything. Sarawak, nobody can do everything. Kelantan, Terengganu, Selangor, there's so many. But, we're not going to cover everyone. So I think, it's okay for us to have neighborhood, little informal groups to check on one another and maybe, check in with a bigger group once in a while. But I think to formally adopt one platform, it's going to be difficult.
It will take too long to put in place.
Yeah.
It will take very long to put in place. And I think
then you have rules and guidelines. And if you don't follow, you're going to get kicked out. I would be the first to get kicked out.
But you would be an asset.
No, but there is already.
No, I would be the first to get kicked out.
Yeah, there's some people who took the initiative to put like a WhatsApp app with all the food bank, right? Which
That's
I think is
right,
fantastic, but the reality is that the people who need the food bank maybe don't have a mobile or data. Is that app, right? And let's do a reality. You know, Malaysia have these B40, M40s, and you know, so 40% of the population is B40. So those already we know they are in need, correct? And there is M40, and between the M40, I think there is the bottom part of the M40, which maybe it's another 20%, which is the urban poor. So we are talking about 60% of those 32 million that needs help. You can't help. You can't have a platform. Then you know what I mean. It's at the end of the day, it's really organic. Is you get money, you bring the food together, you go and deliver. You get money. It's like that. It's really organic on the day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and we're talking about emergencies here. Yeah, this is not a CSR initiative. This is something where people are hungry, haven't eaten in 2 days, mustered the courage to call you to ask you for help, and then you say, okay, wait till the money comes or you get the food. I'm like, cannot. I mean, I've emptied personally my bank account 3 times because if you wait for food and you wait for money, those people are going to wait another 2 days. You can't do that. You can't do that. So that's
I always believe that warm meal is not really a privilege; it's just a need, really.
It's a need you can't do without. So for me, like guidelines, SOPs, whatever. Wait. No.
Okay, so right. I'm very curious though. We can help and help and help, but is there like an end goal? I mean, how much do we do, or how far do you guys have like this thing where we hope to help this family so that they can finally get back on their feet? But then again, there's so many who are suffering and so many more who are suffering in silence. So what is the end goal? I'm always curious.
I actually have a 12 o'clock meeting after this looking at strategy, right? I told you I have a data. Looking at ways in which we can look at long-term solutions, mid-term solutions to addressing the issue. The issue now is an emergency, right? We're in crisis. So what we're doing right now, what we're talking about is crisis. Crisis, intervention, short-term. The short term might be a year, who knows, right? But we need to think about recovery. We need to think about, how to get these people, sustainable livelihoods, jobs back, right? And all these things have to get done because you're right. We will get out of the pandemic or we live with it, right? So we have to do this food thing for a while until it sort of stabilizes. Whenever that stabilizes, we'll know when we get less calls for help. We'll know when people don't starve as much. We'll know when children are back in school and they're eating, and there's systems in place that, however imperfect is, there will be systems running. Then we know it's time to look at to sort of implement the intervention and the long-term recovery, whatever it is. So what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. So now it's like fire, put out the fire. Then we're going to look at, oh my God, look at what's happening. Sorry, I didn't mean that. But look at what's happening, and see how we can sort of rebuild livelihoods and look at innovative ways to, do urban farming or rural farming or whatever it is, looking at food security. Our pillars on what matters to human beings and to Malaysians or people in Malaysia has changed.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're looking at like gig economies, platforms, digital, vertical farming, food security, water, forced wage, all these things that new ones. I'm like listening to my kids, talking about all these things. And I'm like, what food waste? What? I've never heard about this, right? So now it's like, this is the reality, climate change. Yeah, it's changed. Yeah. So I'm just reading as fast as I can and just trying to help as much as I can. So don't know. I have no idea.
So we help them for now because there is an emergency, and then eventually we'll help them to, get placements and job security and stuff like that. Okay.
I think that can only happen if we are really also taking the vaccination really seriously.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, at the moment, I mean, this is the end goal, right? Once everybody or the majority of people is vaccinated, then life can go back as normal. I mean, Singapore was saying not long ago, then says, COVID-19 is here to stay. We have to learn how to live with it.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really accurate. And now is how do we have learned how not to fall into state of emergencies or, with the incubators and all of these things like that, right? So maybe the vaccine is not, a real vaccine. Maybe it's more of a pre-treatment, to avoid us, falling extremely sick. But it's still something that people have to take. There was 72,000. I'm very good with numbers, so maybe someone has to correct me. 72,000 of people who miss their vaccination appointment. I'm like, this is crazy, because this is today you cannot think, I want or I don't want, suka. You just have to do it because it's for the common good. Maybe you're in a privileged situation that you don't need it because you're not dealing with on the ground people, you're at home, and but it's not going to pass. Everybody have to take their vaccination because that's the only way then Tini and I can sleep. So, because once we get herd immunization, then people can go back to work. Those hand to mouth, right? They can go back to work. They can go back and the economy can start restart.
Make a
then we look at what we need to do then. But that's really this is really where we have to go, is vaccination.
Okay. I guess that's the long-term goal, isn't it? I mean, if you want to get people to a phase of recovery, getting back to their lives, only then can we talk about how to get people. If people are vaccinated, I think we have had a couple of shows also encouraging people to to take the vaccine, but as like what Arnaud said, there's still some hesitancy among even people who are what we would term as educated. There's because you read a lot of things that's being forwarded. Every day there's something new, something different. People buy into this kind of rhetoric. It's and I think it's to get our lives back. To reclaim our lives, I think that probably is one of the strategies. I guess, Tini, you'll be talking about later at 12 o'clock, in terms of long-term strategy. But I think, to what Alex was saying just now, I was just thinking, when we try and make this very organized, like you said, the problem comes is, regulations, verification, and it just slows down the whole process, isn't it? I mean, to get food to people's tables, when you have a major organization trying to put this thing together, because you're accountable, you want to do. But I've been saying to people is that, if a few friends can get together and say, okay, we're going to do this in our neighborhood, you don't need SOPs, you don't need regulations, you don't need strict guidelines. Just few friends getting together and said, okay, let's do this. I know in our comment sections, people are asking, okay, how do I donate to the giving bank? How do I donate to?
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe you disagree with me, but in the sense that this morning, the conversation this morning is not about raising funds, but the conversation this morning is about what difference can you make in your neighborhood with your friends. And I think that's what we want to encourage people. We are putting up their website, link to their website. But I think more effectively, I think if people who are listening in can just call up 2-3 friends and say, okay, let's do something. Maybe in the petrol kiosk that is nearby, there's something there that we can put up, or maybe in the grocery store that I go to, the supermarket I go to, there's a kind of a food shelf that I could contribute. And I think that's what's going to make a difference for a lot of us.
Can I add?
Go ahead.
Because I always do this. Sorry, interrupt people. Sorry, I have to be better listening. But I always say this, right? I'm horrible. I have to learn that. But I say this, right? If you get 12 friends to do something once a month, one friend does one thing once a year, but you have a year program, right? It's as simple as that. Your internal accountability and your internal whatever is between your friends, right? That's so you decide whatever the rules are. But like I said, you get 12 friends, you do thing once a year, that's still a year program amongst your 12 friends. If you pool your funds together among 10 people and you give 100 ringgit, that is, how much? Huh? My math is horrible. 10,000, right?
So you like numbers, right?
Oh, I'm horrible. I'm a fundraiser.
That's 1,000. You're hoping for 10,000, but 1,000.
Okay, the 1,000. 100 ringgit. Okay, whatever. Okay.
10 people, yeah.
I'm horrible. My math is horrible. Oh my God, my teachers are going to kill me. Yeah, my math is horrible. So anyway, the point is you can do a lot. You can do a lot with so little. For me, and I am a consultant on fundraising, resource mobilization. I work for UN organizations, etc. This is all I do, strategy, fundraising. For me, the more important thing to helping people and to working on providing services and, getting advocacy out there and helping the poor is not money. It's not. I know everybody thinks it's the most important thing. It's not. The most important thing is us, people, because there's no boundaries. It's up to us what we want to do. It's our brains, it's our connections, it's our spirit, and it's what Arnaud has to be able to share. We can go a lot further in terms of sustainability. I'm not saying money is not important. I'm just saying it's not the most important. So this isn't for me about fundraising. This was for me a way to sit down and come together, Muslim, Christian, whatever, Malay, Chinese, which is why I'm both, to come together and talk about what matters. And what matters is human beings and humanity and compassion and service. I think we're all here because we are of service, or we try to be of service. I try to be of service to others, right? But the rest of you are. And that for me is more important, and it's priceless because it's not about money. Money goes down the toilet if you're corrupt. Money goes down the toilet if you don't think properly and if you don't care enough. So money is not the most important thing. So that's all I wanted to say. I have to go soon. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so before we let you go, I just have one last question. If you had a chance, if you had a chance to change one thing about the way things are right now with the poor and the marginalized, what would that be?
Wow.
I wanted to say something which I can't.
You're holding your tongue. It's so obvious.
I'm just trying. So, what would I change? I would change our attitude towards volunteerism and helping one another. We need more of that. So that's the diplomatic answer, but that's also truth. So.
Yeah, I would love to change people's mindset. Then it's too. I don't want to give because what I give is too little. I don't want to give a food to my neighbor because I can only give a can, or you know what I mean. And I think that as long as you give, the people who give have to be bigger than the people who need. That's the only way that you can help, right? And and I wish then, all of these military compound in Malaysia who have central kitchen, massive kitchens, start cooking for the nation, because we are really facing a wartime, and I think we need to feed our nation.
Beautiful. So Arnaud and Tim, I think, you guys have actually enlightened the minds of a lot of us. And now we know the clearer picture of what the landscape is like out there, because most of us are stuck at home. We really don't know what's happening. And you've actually helped us. And now we know that it's not just about the money. It's about what we as people can do for our community, our society out there as well. So on behalf of Catholics at Home, I want to say thank you for joining us this afternoon, or rather this morning. And we wish you all the best, and I hope there's more coffee and cupcakes and chocolates to go around for the both of you. Father Clarence, anything you'd like to add before they go?
It's just amazing, the energy that comes out of you, just in this conversation. It's amazing. I can only imagine that energy being translated into the work that you do, and it's probably magnified 100 or 1,000 times over. Thank you so much for what you do. And for this conversation, and I hope that to say to all those who are listening to us, if there's something that you can do, maybe after listening to us, just call up 5 friends. Just call up 5 friends and say, let's do something. It doesn't always have to be, like Tini said, it doesn't always have to be about channeling monies to organizations.
Yeah.
But just call up 5 of your close friends and says, let's do something. Let's plan this out. It doesn't have to be long term. Like Tini says, maybe even just for the next 6 months, let's do something. And I think that will make a difference. So just call up 5 friends, before lunch today, and say, let's plan something. This evening we will meet, and let's plan something to put some food somewhere for the people. I think that would be the call to action. And thank you so much, Arnaud, and Tini for spending. I know Saturday morning probably it's your downtime or your me time.
No, it's okay.
But
No, the phone has
No,
been ringing.
Arnaud is normally-
constantly.
I don't check my
Arnaud is
phone.
normally
I
on the
just wait a
street.
second, but I have to go only because I have to share the link for the next
Yeah.
call. Bye,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thank
I'm
you.
going to be in touch. Bye.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you,
care.
Tini.
Bye
Thank you.
bye. So, our guests this morning have been really inspiring, Father. I'm so inspired by the both of them. But that's the question I ask about long term, right? It's always been in my mind from the time I was a little girl. I used to ask my parents, if we keep feeding the poor and we only provide them one meal, like for instance for 1 month, right? What happens then after that 1 month? Is there like something we can help them for long term? Can we get a job? Can we get them a job? Can we get them a place to stay? So I've always thought about things like this. But today, Hartini actually helped put perspective for me, and give me that perspective that right now we are in an emergency and a lot of people really do need warm meals, So yeah. What have you taken out of this whole conversation, Father?
I think this is, for me, is that there are a lot of great people out there doing different things. People like Tini and Arnaud. I think one thing that we need to remember is we don't have to be great people to be able to do something. Even in our own ordinary sense, just to move ourselves to do something. I think that's the most important thing that I'm taking. That everyone will need to move, and do something. That's why I was saying that if after this we can just call up a few friends and say, let's do something. That's already a pathway to recovery, to helping each other. If just 2, 3, I'm sure we all have 2, 3 friends whom we can call and say, let's do something. And there are lots of opportunities out there. That's all we need to do. Yeah. So for me, that is every one of us can do something this morning.
Yeah, and it's very true, Father. You don't have to be great, or you don't have to be rich to do something, because I think a lot of us always tell ourselves, when we be rich, right? When we are rich, we will help the people. Right now, I'm also struggling, so I can't help. But the thing is, a little bit goes a long way. Like Arnaud said, it's a warm meal for somebody. Placing that seat at your table, knowing that someone else needs that meal. It also makes a difference. And I think this past couple of weeks, there was a campaign that was recently launched that also showed that a lot of people are suffering in silence. So I think if you see it in your community, in your housing area, that's one way you can start as well. Reach out to that family, because you never know, they may not be able to make the rent this week. They may have a little child who don't have milk. So something can be done. So look out for that one.
Yeah. I think we just need to keep our eyes open. To turn a blind eye at this time would be very cruel. And probably, at some point, I think this is coming from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 25, the final judgment. When I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. This is the moment. This is it. This is where the gospel comes alive at this time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So look around. I think you notice that there are many people asking for help as well, and see how you can help your community, or help the people next door. Perhaps you may have a neighbor. Okay. You don't have to reach out. Okay. If you're in EMCO area, you want to reach out to KL, a bit pushing it, so start from nearby, okay? So we are also right now trying to garner 10,000 subscribers for our YouTube channel. So we'd appreciate if you'd like to share this and get your friends to subscribe to our channel as well. It'd be really, really doing us a favor. Thank you so much for that one. I want to thank you first. Also, for those of you who are looking out to help the Giving Bank or Yayasan Chowkit, the links are at the bottom as well. You can also go check them out on any social media platform and it will lead you right there. So I think, Father, I think it's about time we wrap up the show for
That's
this
right.
afternoon. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to say
No,
for all our viewers?
I think some of you may have watched that short promo clip that we did for Catholics at Home, which you will see at the end of this also. Just a shout out to thank Trinity 42, the media team. They have been collaborating with us and helping us in our work too. Just to thank them also for their contribution in helping to promote Catholics at Home. And maybe we just conclude with a prayer, and as we always do. Yeah.
Yes,
In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to have this conversation. We thank you for giving us the eyes of Arnaud and Tini to help us see what's happening in the ground, despite the fact that we are unable to move. We ask you, Lord, to inspire us to action, to help one another. Even the little that we give will help someone to live, to survive. Lord, help us to move into mission as we are called to, and to be able to navigate through this crisis with you guiding each one of us. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Father, Son,
Father.
Holy Spirit, amen. So there you go. We've come to the end of the show this Saturday morning. Thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you who caught us at the tail end of the show, don't worry. It will always be there on YouTube and Facebook. You can watch it at any time you're free. Feel free to share the podcast as well. And we will catch you again next week. I think next week we've got another very interesting topic lined up, isn't it, Father? We're getting very in touch with the current situation right now. So we want to just, share or spread the word as much as we can. So look out for that one happening next week. Yeah. In the meantime, we're wishing you a fantastic weekend ahead, and do take care, stay safe, and stay at home. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.